Now, let's look at the second pillar of ESG, social. The S in ESG stands for social. This pillar focuses on how a company manages its relationships with employees, suppliers, customers, and the community where it operates. Simply put, social factors look at how a company treats people. Examples of some priorities within the social pillar are human capital management, product service sourcing, human rights labor management, just to name a few. These categories are specifically relevant to the high-tech industry. Let's look at human capital. Human capital management addresses the skilled labor shortage, uneven wage growth, and technology and evolving market trends. Especially in industries that are not as labor-intensive, taking steps beyond what is expected. More and more companies are invested in the growth of their workforce by offering trainings, advancement opportunities, and skill development programs, all in an effort to positively affect the skilled labor shortage market. Additionally, companies that diversify the workforce, promote gender equality, and create inclusion programs like affinity groups affect the overall social good of an organization. Organizations with wide-reaching lessons focused on combating social exclusion, discrimination, gender wage gap, as well as providing opportunities to share dialogue about these key issues, gives space for employees and others to keep a business on a good social track. Questions that should be asked by an organization are, how are your employees feeling about coming to work? Finding ways to mitigate turnover through employee engagement is a key priority for ESG companies. Did you know? In August 2020, the SEC, Securities Exchange Commission, deemed human capital management a material risk, which will need to be included in the standard reporting process. Let's look at product and service sourcing. Product and service sourcing addresses the supply chain and overall production oversight of a company's product or service. By assessing the production needed for a service or good to be created, a company needs to consider the safety of employees and consumers alike. Ensuring safe working conditions in buildings, chemical safety, and even customer data privacy are all examples of areas to ensure that ethical sourcing is taking place. A devastating example of a lack of management of this social pillar is the textile factory that collapsed in Bangladesh in 2010, where more than 1,100 employees died. Before the collapse, the building was briefly evacuated when cracks appeared in the walls. However, workers were later allowed back in or told to return to work. This is an example where employees, local community, country, and the least of them, the fashion businesses, were affected by improper supply chain practices. Let's look at human rights and labor management. This can be defined as the way a company manages the relationship with labor within the organization. Questions to consider in this category are employees or contractors treated fairly? Do they earn a living wage? It is imperative that a company assesses if there are any adverse human rights impacts in an organization's value chain and addresses them immediately. For example, in the late 90s, Nike was accused of using forced labor in Asia. This had rippling effects to where they experienced boycotts from college teams, institutional customer losses, and consumer protests, all of which affected the overall Nike community as well as organizational reputation and financials. The establishment of a human rights policy can be a good start for a basis of rolling out a standard to include in commitment for specific human rights issues. The S in ESG really tests the effort an organization makes to keep the best in mind for employees and the local communities alike.